Hi, Verbling. My name's Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And today we're talking about sentence structure. We're going to get really deep into sentence structure in English, which can be more difficult than it seems sometimes. If anybody wants to friend me on Facebook, I'll put my Facebook name in the box. And if you want private tutor sessions, go ahead and check out my schedule on my profile. All right, Tony, welcome back.
Thank you, teacher.
Great to see you again.
My pleasure.
And Onur, welcome.
Hi, Misha. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. It has been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Maybe 2 months.
Wow. What have you been up to?
I have some business, some things to do at factory. So I had not enough time to accommodate to Warbling.
Busy working.
So yeah. It's
all
good
right.
to see you again.
Yeah, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Elena, welcome to class.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, it's been a while for you too. How are you?
Fine, very well, thank you.
Have you been pretty busy?
No, well, not especially. I have been taking classes, but well, we just don't have the same timetable, I suppose.
Yeah, that happens. Well, I'm glad you're back and I get to have you again.
Thank you.
Artur, welcome to class.
Hi, Michaela. Thank you.
Good to have you with us. How's your weekend, Artur?
Well, it's fine.
All right. Good. And Abdul?
Yeah, Abdul? Yeah.
Okay, Abdul.
Yeah, that's
Just, right? Okay. All right, welcome to class.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
I think this is the first time I've met you, right?
Yeah, that's my first time with you, teacher.
It's good to meet you. Where are you from?
Good to meet you too. I'm from Libya, and I'm trying to learn or improve my English language so I could continue my master's study. Yeah.
Great. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to put the document in the chat boxes for you, but before you open it, I will warn you that some really weird formatting problems occurred, and so the first 3 pages are just total nonsense, and you can skip over them. And when we start looking at the document, we're going to start where it says direct and indirect objects. But before we get there, we're going to do a review of parts of a sentence. So what are our options? We're going to talk about different words and how we use them. So let's start talking about what kind of word categories are there. And I guess, Tony, can you give us 1 or 2 categories of words?
Noun.
Noun, okay. Thank you. Onur, do you have any you can add to our list?
I missed that. Verbs, adverbs.
Thank you. Elena, can you give us a couple more?
Yeah, prepositions. Adjectives, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's somebody.
Artur, can you think of any others?
Modal verbs. Auxiliaries or auxiliary verbs.
Excellent. And Abdul, can you think of any other types of words we can put in our list? You've got the tough job because we've already named most of the easy ones.
Yeah. What do you call the words when you add ing?
A gerund.
Gerund.
Okay, excellent. Awesome. And welcome to class, Amr. How are you? Are you there? Maybe you're still loading? Okay. I am going to put this list into the chat boxes. And let's talk about a basic sentence. How do we make a basic sentence? We've got three types of basic sentences, right? We have a positive statement, a negative statement, and a question. So a positive statement would be something like, I like broccoli. Negative, I don't like broccoli. And question, do you like broccoli? So what are those sentences? What order do those words go in? What do we start with?
With the subject.
Okay. So this isn't a word that we mentioned in our list above because the subject is filled by some of those words. So what could a subject be?
Noun, pronoun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it could be a noun, a pronoun,
gerund.
a proper noun. It could be, sometimes it's a gerund. Definitely. So a subject could be any of those things. Of course, it could be like a name too. And then what comes after the subject, usually?
Verb.
Verb. Yes. Then comes the verb.
Verb.
Usually. Not always, but usually. And sometimes, depending on the sentence, we could have an auxiliary verb or something. And that would be for a positive statement. So if we're making a positive statement, the smallest statement we could make would be something like, I talk, I walk. And that would just be a subject and a verb. But if we wanted to add on, we could add on almost infinite things. We could add on adjectives, objects. And let's talk about objects, because that's not what we put in our list either. How do you make an object? What's the difference between an object and a subject?
The subject make the action, and the object I don't know. I have to check the word. Suffer is subjected to the.
Exactly. So an object is made of the same things as a subject. A subject could be a noun, a pronoun, or a gerund. An object can be the same things, but the difference is the part of the sentence it appears, because it's acted on. So we start with the thing that does the action, and then after the verb, we'll have an object of some kind. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes we have an object, and it's acted on. So I hit the boy. The boy is the object. Amr, I can't hear you. Are you there?
Hello.
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now. Awesome.
I've been
Good to
talking
have you here.
for 5 minutes.
I haven't heard anything you said before.
Yeah,
Oh,
Are you still there? Amr?
I think he
I
has
can't hear
problem.
you anymore.
Yeah. Microphone
Yeah,
settings.
it seems like it's probably a connection problem. Maybe a microphone problem, but probably a connection problem. So let us know if, or I'll come back to you in a little bit. But hopefully your connection is sorted out. Okay. So we have a simple sentence here. What about if we're going to make it negative? What are some negative words we could add? Can anyone come up with examples of words that would make a sentence negative?
Not.
Not. That's the simplest one, right? What about any others?
No.
No. Okay. Anything else?
Neither.
Never. Don't. Okay, so that's like an auxiliary plus the not. Anything else?
Neither.
Neither. Yes. Anything else?
Doesn't. Maybe. Don't.
Doesn't. Doesn't. Nobody. Nothing.
Isn't. Aren't.
Isn't. Aren't. These are all negatives. And I'll put those there. And where do we put the negative? I mean, it depends on the word, but if we're going to use not, where would we put that?
After the verb.
After the verb?
Or, yeah.
Depends on which verb you're talking about.
After do not, like no, before the verb. Okay. But
that depends, because you're right. You're right. It does go after usually it goes after a auxiliary verb and before the main verb.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean that.
Okay. And Amr, are you there? Still can't hear you. Nothing. Okay. So I'm going to screen share a document for you guys because, like I said, the one I made this really long and what I thought was very beautiful document, and then it just got totally messed up in the format. So we're going to talk about direct and indirect objects today, in addition to a few other things, to talk about where we can put things in the sentence. And really quick, before we do objects, let's talk about prepositional phrases. If you want to add a prepositional phrase onto a sentence, where do you usually do it? So a prepositional phrase would be something like in the morning or at the house or from the street. It could be anything that starts with a preposition and then usually there's a noun after it. So if I want to use one of those prepositional phrases on a simple sentence, where would I put it? Beginning, middle, end?
It must be at the end of the sentence or at the middle?
Usually, you're right, it's at the end. So usually I would say, I cook meat at the house. Usually that would be at the end. You can sometimes change it, so that would look something more like, at the house, I cook meat. And if you change it, you'll put a comma after the prepositional phrase and before the rest of the sentence. But it's most common to have it at the end of the sentence, so if you're ever not really sure where to put it at the end of the sentence. Because sometimes it can be confusing if you change the order and then there's no real reason for it. All right, so back to our objects. We're going to talk about a direct and an indirect object. So what is a direct and indirect object? Let's see. Elena, do you have any idea what a direct and indirect object is?
yes. In a direct object, that person or thing we resides the action directly.
Mm-hmm.
In the indirect object, as the word says, the action is received indirectly. I don't know. It's,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put a simple sentence in the chat box. I send you the letter. Onur, which of those words is the direct object and which is the indirect object?
Indirect object is letter, I
That's
guess.
the indirect object?
Yeah.
Not
It's okay?
quite.
no.
No.
Okay. Um, Actually, I misunderstood that direct and indirect objects.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe next time I will give my opinion.
I think it's a little difficult because honestly, I feel like it would make more sense if we put the direct object closer to the verb, but in English we usually don't. And we're about to talk about that, about the order in which we usually use them. But in this particular sentence, you is the indirect and the letter is the direct object. Because when I say I send, I'm not sending you. So I might say I send you to the store. And in that case, you would be the direct object because I'm like sending you. You are going from here to there. But in this case, you're not going from here to there. The letter is the thing that's moving. So what I'm sending is the letter. And who I'm sending it to is you.
Okay. Now I understood. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So if we go back to our document, we have some rules here about how we use them because the order can change sometimes. So rule number 1 and 3 examples. Abdul, will you read those for us? Just number 1 plus the 3 examples.
Okay. Number 1, if the indirect object comes first in a sentence, there is no preposition. They gave Harold a new car. Mrs. Jones offered the girls a cake. My grandma always wishes me good luck.
Thank you very much. So this would be the typical way to structure a sentence, meaning that the indirect object is the closest to the verb and the direct object is farther away from the verb. And in the sentence, my grandma always wishes me good luck, what is the direct object? Can anyone take a guess? My grandma wishes me good luck. Which is the direct object?
Good luck.
Me?
Good luck.
Yes. Luck or good luck is the direct object. And what's the indirect object?
Me.
Me. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Alb, welcome to class.
Hello.
Am I saying your name right? Is it Alb?
Well, it's Alberto.
Ah,
Hello.
okay.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Michaela. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Where are you from, Alberto?
Madrid, from Spain.
Excellent. Good to have you with us.
Sorry, say again?
Good to have you with us today.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. So we're looking at direct and indirect objects right now, and the notes are up. And you also can find the notes in the chat boxes, although the first 3 pages are a little scrambled. We're going to go on to the rule number 2, guiding where we put these objects and indirect objects. Artur, will you read number 2 for us?
Yes. If it comes second, a preposition must be used. They gave a new car to Harold. Mrs. Jones offered a cake to the girls. My grandma always wishes good luck to me.
Thank you. So in sentence number 2, Mrs. Jones offered a cake to the girls. What's the direct object here?
A cake.
Yes. And what's the indirect object?
The girls.
Yes. So this is another perfectly correct form of using a sentence, but you have to add a preposition in order to attach the indirect object now. All right. Rule number 3. Elena, will you read it plus the sentences?
If the direct object is a pronoun, it, this, it comes first and we must use a preposition. Compare the difference in the following examples. I bought it for my sister. Can you send it to him? I'll get it for you as soon as I can. Not, I bought my sister it. Can you send him it? I'll get you it as soon as I can.
Thank you very much. So we have a couple examples here. Some you can tell are wrong, like I bought my sister it sounds really strange. And if you go above, you can change some of these sentences around to, again, hear how strange it would be. Like, they gave a new car him would be a really terrible organization. So that's definitely a no-no. Don't do that. However, you can sometimes hear this in native speakers. Like, this is a mistake that occasionally a native speaker will make. So if you ever hear these sentences, you can know that you are better than everybody and that you know that that's not correct. Because, or, well, it's only correct if you think of English that's used by native speakers as always correct. So it's kind of complicated because it's technically incorrect, but it is something that native speakers will occasionally use. Okay. And then we have a note on some irregular verbs here. Alberto, will you read the note for us?
Okay, I think I'm gonna try. We can use the verbs promise, show, and tell with the indirect object only, but without a preposition. Compare the samples. Follow? Yeah. I can promise you, or I can promise it to you. Show him, or show it to him. Can you tell it to me, or can you tell me? But remember, can you say it to me after the? Can you say it to me after the verb? Say. We must use the pronoun and preposition in the English language.
Okay. So these are just some irregular verbs that do not require both. So you can have an indirect object without having a direct object. And we've got 3 examples here. And then it talks a little bit about the difference between say and tell. Do you guys remember what the difference is between the verb say and the verb tell?
Not really.
Tony, do you remember the difference?
I think that's when you have to say something to someone, for example, an author or a story, you use tell. When you say something in general, you use say.
So that's part of the difference. But there's the main grammatical difference between say and tell is the way we use them in a sentence. For example, say never needs an object. So if someone said, well, who says that? I could say, I say. And I could just put a period there. I say, period. No need for anything else. Of course, you can add objects to that verb, but you don't have to add objects to it. But tell is not the same. Tell must have an object. You can't say, I tell. You have to have something there. I tell her, I tell him, or I tell the secret, I tell the lie. You have to have some kind of object. So that's the main difference between them.
Oh, sorry, teacher. It's right, the phrases. Can you tell it to me?
What?
It is right, the phrase. Can you tell it to me?
Uh-huh.
Because
So that's the
I don't understand
example there.
the note. I don't understand the note because they say we don't have to use a preposition.
Okay, so in this case, this is something where we're using a pronoun. And so since we're using the pronoun, we're going to apply rule number 3.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions before we go on to a little practice? All right. Then below, we have a little bit of practice, 9 to be exact. And I'm going to give each of you one of these sentences. So the sentence is just started for you. All it has is a subject and some kind of verb conjugation. And then you have to finish the sentence with whatever prompt is in parentheses. So the first one says, add an indirect object, then a direct object. You have to decide if there are any necessary prepositions or if you need to change things around. You need to decide whatever you're going to do and create the full sentence. So number 1, I'll give to Tony. Number 2, Onur. Number 3, Elena. Number 4, Artur. Number 5, Amr. Number 6, Alberto. Number 7, Abdul. So write your sentence in the chat box whenever you're ready.
Chat.
And if you guys have any questions while you're writing, just let me know.
Verbal chat or Google chat?
Whatever one is better, I'll check them both. Awesome. So Tony, read us your sentence.
Danny brought me a delicious cake.
Excellently done. So we've got the indirect object and then the direct object, no preposition necessary. Thank you. Onur, will you read number 2?
Okay. The plumber sent his toolbox to you.
Okay. And what order do you have them in?
Sorry. And the first one, the first one direct, and then indirect.
Excellent. And there we need a preposition, which you have. Great sentence. Elena, read us your sentence.
Jennifer wrote her the direction.
All right. Excellent. So there we have a direct object, that's a pronoun, and an indirect object. And when you say the direction, do you mean something like instructions?
No, in fact, I mean the address. I wanted to mean the address.
Ah, the address. I got it.
But yeah, you know, I have translated directly from Spanish. And it would be better to say Jennifer wrote down the address.
Yeah, you can say that too. That would turn that simple verb into a phrasal verb. And it means pretty much the same thing. The phrasal verb is just a little bit less formal. So you could say Jennifer wrote down her address.
Okay.
All right. Arthur, will you read us your sentence?
The instructor offered me assistance.
All right. And what do you have there? Explain to us what you have following your verb.
Me as indirect object and assistance direct object.
Awesome. Thank you. Abdul, will you read us your sentence?
I don't know if I get it correctly or not, but at least I tried.
Yeah.
They had promised their people.
Awesome. And you did a perfect job here. So all that one requires is an indirect object. This is one of our irregular verbs that we do not need both a direct and an indirect object. So you just have an indirect, and it's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. All right. Let's see. I think 1, 2, 3, 4. We're waiting on number 5 and 6. And if anyone wants to try number 8 and number 9 while you're waiting for the other sentences, you can go ahead and write those in the chat box also. So if you have extra time, do number 8 and number 9. Excellent sentence, Anur. So he finished number 8 in one possible way. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me. Excellent. So there we just have the indirect object. No need for a direct object. And I'm going to wait a couple more minutes, maybe like 1 more minute for any last sentences. I'm still waiting on number 5, number 6, and I got one for number 9, a couple for number 9. So the king gave money to people. The king gave me his sword. Both of them are pretty good. So the first sentence we have here, the king gave money to people, is great because it follows the rules, but it's kind of funny because it's a really general statement. Like what money and what people. It's not specific at all. It doesn't say like he gave the money to the people. It just says the king gave money to people. Random money to random people. It's a good sentence. It's just a funny one. And then the next one, the king gave me this sword. Another good way to do number 9. And the king gave that order to his people. Another excellent one, Elena. Thank you. Seems like you guys totally have this direct and indirect object thing under control. If you're still trying to finish your sentence, you're welcome to take your time and put it in the chat box whenever you're ready. And we're going to move on now to the next part of class, where we're going to talk about adverbs, because that's another pretty tricky sentence part. It can change position depending on what kind of adverb it is and many other factors. So we're going to read the notes and then do some practice. We're going to start with Abdul. Will you read adverbs of manner?
Adverbs of manner. These answer the question how. This adverb usually comes after the direct object or if there is no direct object after the verb. She speaks Italian beautifully. And the text. Okay, she speaks Italian beautifully. He works well. You must drive your car carefully. Eat quietly.
Thank you very much. And while we're talking about this, I just want to bring your attention to well. The difference between well and good is they're part of speech. So well is an adverb and good is an adjective. And that's a pretty common mistake for English learners, but even for native English speakers. They sometimes make mistakes between the difference of good and well. Like sometimes when someone says, "How are you?" it's pretty common to get the response, "I'm good," when really it should be, "I am well." But you know, whatever.
Also,
Albert,
there is a
oh,
thing.
go ahead.
It feels good.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, right? Because it's not actually correct, but it's the most common.
It's very common.
Exactly. Good example. Alberto, will you read about adverbs of place?
Okay, adverbs of place. This answers the question where. This adverb usually comes after the object, otherwise after the verb. We saw you there. We were sitting here. We looked everywhere. Have you seen my glasses anywhere? I'm sure I left them somewhere. I can't find them anywhere.
Thank you very much. So these adverbs come in pretty much the same place, same rule as the last one. They just answer a different question. Any questions so far on these adverbs?
Yes. I have a question about adverbs of manner. I know they usually goes at the end, but how bad is you said you must drive carefully your car? It sounds weird or not really, or
So it sounds weird, but it's not something that would stop me from understanding you. If you say, "You must drive carefully your car," I would still understand what you're saying, and it wouldn't make any kind of any difficulty for our communication, probably. It would sound a little funny to me, and it might take me a second. I might hesitate to respond, but there's no difficulty in communication. So it is a mistake, but not a big mistake.
okay,
Just helps
but
a little.
it is a mistake.
Yes, it is a mistake.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, then let's go on to adverbs of time. And let's see. Artur, will you read them for us?
Adverbs of time. These answer the question when. This adverb usually comes either at the very beginning of the sentence or at the end. Afterwards, we decided to go by car. I've done that journey before.
Thank you very much. And still and yet. This is a pretty tricky topic. Elena, will you read it for us?
Still and yet. Note: yet and still. Yet should be placed at the end of the sentence. Still should be placed before the verb, except with the verb to be when it comes after. We haven't started yet. He still wears old-fashioned clothes. He is still a student. Compare these two sentences. The train still hasn't arrived. The train hasn't arrived yet.
So what's the difference between these two sentences?
No,
Kind of a trick
there's.
question.
I think there's no difference in the meaning. It's just the place, the adverb. has.
Yeah, exactly. No real difference in meaning here. Just the adverb changes and, of course, the sentence placement changes. But that's it. All right. Adverbs of frequency, which finishes on the next page. How about Onur? Will you read those for us?
Okay. Adverbs of frequency. This answer the question how many times. This adverb comes after the verb to be. She is always honest. Comes before simple tense of all other verbs. They sometimes spent the whole of Saturday fishing. Another example comes after the first auxiliary in a tense consisting of more than one verb. I have often wondered how they did that. I can sometimes go without food for days.
Okay. So let's see. In the last sentence, I can sometimes go for food without food for days. What's the adverb in that sentence?
For days.
Nope.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. For days would be a prepositional phrase. And without food would also be a prepositional phrase. But sometimes is our adverb. And what's the auxiliary verb in that sentence?
Can.
Can. And the main verb is go. So this is pretty tricky. Adverbs of frequency are kind of slippery because they come after an auxiliary verb and after the verb to be, but before all other verbs. And that's only if the adverb of frequency is one word or two words, like something like hardly ever. I hardly ever go to the store, or I can hardly ever go without food for days would be another way we can use adverbs of frequency there. But sometimes you have adverbs of frequency that are three words, like from time to time. Does anybody know what we would do if our adverb of frequency was three words, like from time to time?
I would put it at the end.
Yeah, at the end would be a good place for it. So if we use that same sentence, we could say, I can go without food for days from time to time, or at times. And those would be still kind of adverbs of frequency because they answer the question, how many times? But they use a preposition to do it, and they're multiple words, so they don't follow the same rules. Okay. And then we have a note under there. Amr, are you in class?
Yes,
Excellent. Would you like to read that note for us?
sure. With to and I have the frequency adverb is usually placed in front. We always you look forward to the cool.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amr. So just a quick note on use to and have. Any questions so far?
Yes, in the case of from time to time or similar expressions, can you put them at the beginning as well?
Yes, you can also put them at the beginning. So at the very beginning or at the very end would be great places for adverbs that change the meaning of when that are more than two words. So two words, you still use these rules, but if it's three words, then it would be at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. Great question.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Then let's go down to adverbs of degree. Tony, can you read those for us?
This answer the question to what extent. This adverb can modify an adverb or an adjective and comes before the word it modifies. The bottle is almost full, nearly empty. They should be able to pass their exams quite easily. The following adverbs of degree can also modify verbs: almost, nearly, quite, hardly, scarcely, barely, just. They follow the same pattern as frequency adverbs in terms of where they are placed. I quite understand. We had almost reached the part when the rain started. I am just beginning a new course.
Thank you very much. And the last section of adverbs that we'll talk about today is inversion. And these are a very specific kind of adverb, and they're very formal speech. So these are not the most common kind of adverb you'll see. And I guess it's mostly important for you to be able to recognize and understand when you hear these. And of course, if you can master producing them as well, that would be excellent. But they're very formal speech, so they're not all that common. This section, everyone has had a turn to read, right? I think so. Abdul, will you read this last section on inversion?
Okay. Inversion. If you begin a sentence with one of the following, the normal word order changes. The verb comes first, followed by the subject. Never, seldom, scarcely, when, no sooner, than, nowhere, in no circumstances, on no account, only, then, not only. Seldom has 1 century seen so many changes. No sooner did we hear the results than there was a knock on the door. Never would I be persuaded to buy a second-hand car.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the adverbs we've gone over so far? Okay. Then we're going to do a little practice. And in the next list, we have some simple sentences. You have to decide where to place the adverb. So in the first one, Alberto, will you read it for us and put that adverb in the right place?
Action is he drives his car carefully.
Sure, he drives his car carefully. Excellent. Amr, can you do the next one?
Okay. John almost fell off the bike.
Awesome, thank you. Artur?
He often listens to the radio.
Excellent. Elena?
I'm still living with my parents.
Onur?
We are going to the museum tomorrow.
One possible way to do it. Tony?
It never gets angry.
Thank you. That's one possible way to do it. Now, what if we wanted to use inversion for this one? Does anybody have an idea of how this sentence would change if we used inversion?
Never does Pete get angry.
Yeah. So it changes quite a bit if we use inversion. We have to add a auxiliary, kind of like a question. So we change the form to be more like a question because we invert the subject and the verb, and we add an auxiliary. Plus, we start with the word never.
Can you repeat it again? The last never gets Pete angry, right?
Not quite.
Does
We need an
Pete get
auxiliary.
angry?
Repeat it.
Never does Pete get angry.
Yes. Never does
Oh.
Pete get angry.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right. No problem. And let's see. Who did the last one? Onur, did you do never?
I did
Three,
Tony.
4,
I
5,
I
6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Tony, will you do the one after that?
Okay. John seldom watches TV.
All right, that's one way to use it. You could use it as if it were a frequency adverb. We could also use it as if it were an inversion adverb. So how would this sentence change if we use it with inversion?
Seldom does John watch TV.
Yes, seldom does John watch TV. Excellent. Okay, Abdul, will you do the next one for us?
You haven't met her yet?
Mm-hmm. And Alberto?
Yes. I lost the connection and I don't know where exactly we are. So
I'll highlight it for you. It's this one.
which one are you going to the bar downtown? Are you going to the bar downtown?
Yep, adverb of placement. And Amr, can you get the next one?
Okay. I'd like to eat dinner. I'd like to eat so sorry, I can't do it.
That's okay. So if you look at our notes, let me scroll back up a second. This one is part of inversion. It's inversion. So only then is going to start the sentence. And then you're going to have to flip things around, and you can model it after this last sentence here, just changing the words out. Anyone want to try this one for us, starting with only then?
I can try. Only then would I like to eat dinner.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Arthur, will you do the next one?
Have you ever been to London?
Mm-hmm. Elena?
Has she already fixed it?
Uh-huh. Anur? Onur, will you get the next one? You're muted, Onur. Maybe you've gone away. Tony, will you do the next one for us?
They go to the store together.
Mm-hmm. Could be. Abdul?
Yeah. Sadly, he was mistaken.
All right, that's one way we could put it.
He
Thank
was
you very much.
sadly mistaken.
Yeah, both of those are fine, really. Thanks. Alberto, back to you. Alberto, are you there? All right. Amr, would you like to try the next one? He is good at safe cracking.
He's extraordinarily good at safe cracking.
Excellent, thank you. Next up, Artur.
They listened closely.
Mm-hmm. And we just have a couple more on the next page. Elena, will you do the next one for us?
He turned the dial on the safe quietly.
All right, that's one way we can do it. Onora,
Sorry, what the save mean? Oh,
Good.
the box where you, I know, where you
Okay.
put your money. Yes.
All right. All cleared up? Tony, will you do the next one?
He hardly stops to breathe.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Abdul,
Yeah.
can you do the next one?
Are you still married to him?
Excellent. And the last one, Alberto?
Are you married to him? Are you married to him yet?
Yes. Thank you. And the only thing we have left to talk about is also and to, which are adverbs, because although we talked about a lot of adverbs today, there are still some adverbs that don't neatly fit into any of those categories. And also and to are sort of those. So also would be good in the beginning of a sentence or at the end of a sentence, and sometimes can be put in the middle of a sentence. Like, I also want to go to the movies. And I just wanted to put that there as a note because sometimes you have an adverb that really does not clearly fit into one of those categories, in which case you can try one of those positions or ask or look it up on Google because there isn't always a rule for everything. All right, guys. We're out of time for today. I have another class coming up in a sec about spelling. So thank you very much for coming to this class, and I hope to see you guys again soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, teacher.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.